Hello, hope you all are doing well. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some things that are going on in the energies. Obviously, I'm sure everyone is feeling this. We've got such an intense amount of light coming in. Really, last week was quite amazing in terms of the setup for the union pillars. I just see it as like the pillar template for source light. That was coming in, and this week absolutely we are feeling it. But the part that I tend to forget is, yeah, when this stuff comes in, though, the way that so much gets dragged up and what that really starts to feel like for us. I was thinking the other day, for some reason what started to come up for me was this idea around the father energies and this kind of father wound. And it's interesting because we talk about divine feminine, we talk about goddess energy, we talk about dark mother energy. We're so familiar with the darkness within the divine feminine herself. And we were really struggling with that, over the last several months, actually. And I really started thinking, like, where does it's not in terms of divine masculine necessarily, but this idea of fatherly energy started to come up for me, and I started to think about how do I relate to that? Do I even know what this is? And I think as a female, I obviously identify more with the divine feminine and the struggle of that energy in terms of feeling and having to actually feel my way back to what is empowerment. How do we feel um, that we are full and complete here within our own bodies, within this time and space? But really, it comes back to, can we even feel complete if we don't feel safe? And I was thinking about, what does the father represent? And to me, um, that really represents the feeling of protection and safety and security. And I was thinking even about, what do I relate to, beyond that as well. It's like to male energy in general. To me, I started really thinking about what image comes up for me when I think about that. And really what I start to feel is it's almost like seeing this kind of foreboding figure in a doorway, right? And it's like, but it's this almost a dark presence there that makes me feel like I have to stay in the room that I'm in. And if I want to get past that, I'm going to have to run and shut my eyes because of the fear that that creates, to move beyond what feels like this. It's a lot of fear programming there. And it's just kind of been unfolding in this very strange way for me, where I really started to have to look at, okay, what does that go back to? Is that my own father? Is that my relationship with him? And of course, we know that, in childhood, we develop these relationships with those paternal energies early on, and that kind of, creates the template for how we live our lives and exist in the world, and also relate uh, in relationship to other people. Based on if they are male or female. So it's an important situation to take a look at. And one of the things that started really coming up for me was, how safe do I really feel being here? And do I feel like I have permission to even exist here? And like, what gives someone that feeling of safety, especially if that original kind of set up, or that template that should be set in childhood, right, is distorted, which for most of us it is, just because we are human beings, right? It's not perfect. And it's not to say that our parents made mistakes. It's to say that this is just all part of the system, right? It's like, parents can be perfect, and yet at some point we will always experience that feeling of abandonment or emotional abandonment, or this unavailability, right? At some point in childhood, it's inevitable. It's just the way the world is. And so we all deal with that to some level. And yet, really, what is happening now is this energy is coming in. It's pulling up all these places where we're looking and saying, where do I not feel safe? And because if we felt truly safe to be, we wouldn't be fighting our light. We wouldn't be fighting this energy that is coming in. And this is really, I think, what is happening for a lot of people. It's not that bad things are necessarily happening or bad energies are coming in. It's that we have been so programmed to resist our own light and to resist our own comfort of being in the light. Over and over again, this was the kind of subconscious message we have been getting ever since we arrived here, as infants, as newborns. So one of the things that, I've really been, and also, like, if we look at what does masculine energy represent, right? In terms of the energetics, we often say feminine energy it's the ethers, it's bringing the energy into the physical, but yet the masculine energy represents that physical plane or that physical space, right? So, it's really a relationship worth kind of exploring here, because what I've always been saying is that, yeah, we can have the light come in, we get these activations all the time, and yet the reason we can't feel it is because we have these blocks internally. And it's not about our energy field per se. At this point, it's about looking at the body, because really the body is the portal for the light. So it's looking at the body to see where are these emotional traumas, where are these emotional blocks that are keeping us from feeling and therefore flowing in safety of being in our own light and being in our own power. And one of the things that happened for me yesterday was that I was getting in the shower and I was in such a place of clarity, which there's a couple of things about this that really kind of piqued my curiosity. And the first was that, okay, this is really a great reason to focus on meditating or doing whatever it is to bring us into a place of stillness. Because what happened was that my mind was so still and I was so clear that as soon as the water hit my head, I had this thought about, when I almost missed it, right? Because the thoughts are so subtle. And I think a lot of times we think, oh, we just have feelings and the feelings are just what appears, right? And we have to follow that because that must be true, because nothing precedes it. And yet what I've come to understand is that there's like two different sides to that. That yes, there are feelings that we can feel as a result of simply having an experience. But then the other end of that is that oftentimes when we have a programmed response, and this is where people say, oh, mind control and this kind of thing. And to me, it's like, it's not really something that's outside of us. It's something that's running internally in our brain programming. So what happened was that as the water hit my head, I started to have this feeling of, I shouldn't be taking a shower because I'm not going out anywhere and it's a waste of water. And I thought, like, that is just the craziest thing in the world. But I realized, like, I had a thought that preceded this feeling that started to flow up within me, which started this kind of almost collapse through my field and through my feelings. It was just this feeling of, what am I even doing? I don't know where I'm going. I feel so unworthy right now. And it's this idea that I can't even use resources. I am not even worth enough to take a shower every day if I don't have a reason. Like, if I'm not going out and I need to be presentable or something like this, it's like I don't have enough of a reason to use water, to use up resources. I don't feel that I'm worthy enough to claim my own space. I don't feel I have a right to take up space. It was insane to me when I caught that thought before I started to kind of spiral. And I did start to spiral because I noticed that it was this thought that preceded this whole experience that I started having in my body, which is not uncommon. I feel this quite regularly, this feeling of like, what am I do? Like, oh my goodness, every day is like kind of this feeling of, I don't really deserve to be walking around this planet and to take up space and to use things. And sometimes I wonder now, it's like all of this, I'm not saying we shouldn't be mindful of the way that we consume. Of course we should, but yet it seems like the ones who are most conscientious about that are the ones who care the most, right? And yet there's so much of this, um, don't waste, don't overuse, and what does that message really do? It almost seems like it's hurting the ones who already care the most, and yet it's almost reinforcing this idea of you don't deserve to exist, you don't deserve to take up space, you don't deserve to feel whole. So it was a really incredibly interesting experience that I was having. And again, what it all comes back to for me, at least now, is really observing the emotions and the feelings that I'm having. And to know that, feelings and emotions are really two different things, because the feeling is what we feel, it's the energy we start to feel in the body. But then, of course, our mind has already assigned an emotion to that, right? So sometimes we'll feel this energy in our stomach and we'll think, I'm really excited. But that same feeling we can translate, like, it's fear and excitement basically are the same feeling, right? It's just a matter of, are we interpreting the situation to be helpful or not helpful to us, right? So there's an interesting play there with the mind. How have we already mapped in the brain through the mind what this feeling means? And so what was happening for me when I was in the shower was my body was responding already to this feeling that I was having. No, it's actually the other way around. My mind, it's interesting. Which one is it, right? It's like, is it my mind that's reacting to the feeling in my body, or is it that my body is reacting to the thought that I'm having? And that's quite curious to me. But I do know, like I said, there was this original thought that came in that was like, I'm taking up resources. I shouldn't be using these resources. And there was a whole story that started to develop in my body around that, which was totally subconscious. And all I knew was that I didn't feel good. I felt like, here we go again. I just feel like nothing I ever do is good enough. And that was all based on this one little thought that started this whole spiral. So that to me is really the mind programming, right? Mind programming is not necessarily about somebody in a van outside of your house, like zapping you, with some kind of laser telling you nasty, evil thoughts. Like, it's already in your head. It's already programmed in your brain. And so again, it's about noticing the patterns, and really, for me, it was needing to be within a place of stillness and clarity in order to notice that thought that came in, right? That started this pattern through, you could say my energy field, my body, whatever, however you want to look at it. But the fact is that it is there. And unless we are actively looking and asking to see these things, we're going to miss it. And this is really, these next 2 months, what I'm really feeling. I think this month is really going to be quite potent. It is quite potent for this kind of awareness to start to come up. And many of us are already experiencing it because we're feeling the stuckness of these energies in our body. So what happens is when we start to feel this, we start to feel that tension, that pain, what we start to say, oh, these are ascension symptoms. And to me, it's not necessarily ascension symptoms. It's the stuck emotional energy that we're not identifying and we're not releasing. And so, yes, we continue to just, okay, let me meditate, let me bring in the light. But it's almost like that starts to create, because there's so much resistance there then, because we're not identifying the energy blockages in the body, then the more light we're adding to it, it can actually start to create this feeling of craziness, where we start to get that racing heart, and it's like, okay, let me go and meditate. And then it's like we just get totally burnt out and fried, because we're not looking at it at the level of the physical form, which is, like I keep saying, it's like the light comes in, but yet the body is the one that has to realize. It's the mind and the consciousness, right? We talk about being a conscious being, and yet what does that mean? It means noticing what's going on in the body and using that consciousness to say, okay, this isn't right. What is going on here? What am I experiencing? It's not such an esoteric thing sometimes. In fact, many times it's not this kind of, I see the light, I'm experiencing this bliss, right? Yes, eventually that's where this goes, but and to get to that point, we have to release the gunk and the garbage that's here, in the form. So, and this is the kind of stuff I am. Yeah, today's Thursday, so I will be doing the group session again this week. And these are the kind of things we're focusing on. It's really tapping in and tuning into the body, because as I said, the body is the portal for the light to come in. And the way that we make this connection within the body realm, within this physical, sentient form, is really how we start to make great leaps in understanding and connecting our consciousness into this here and now, um, through the light. But it's not some, I'm going to fall asleep and be zapped with light and just feel better. It's just not going to happen that way. And I think we kind of delude ourselves sometimes about the level of awareness that we need to have around what is happening inside of us. Now, it isn't to say, let's just lay down and this is awful, we're going to have to stay here for years, uncovering and digging up all these things. It's not like that, because once you start to see the patterns, it just goes like that, right? And sometimes you can do it in your sleep too, where it's like you'll have an awareness of something going on and you can pinpoint, kind of what's happening. It's like seeing the map of how this works. So it's not like, oh, I have to sit at my desk every day and journal and write this down. In the beginning, it can feel like that, right? Until we really get to know our symptoms of deception that exist within us, right? And it's not necessarily self-deception, but it does become that, right? After we've had these patterns so long, all of our lives, we start to believe the illusions that are playing through our mind, right? Like, I shouldn't take a shower today because I'm going to save water. But you know what? But I feel so much better and I'm so much more productive when I do take a shower. So what's to say that I don't deserve to do that, But these are the kind of crazy things that are going on right now that we're not even aware of, that are really driving our the way we feel on a daily basis. Okay, I hope that made sense. I know sometimes I kind of zigzag and go all over the place, but again, it's really about looking at, what does the physical form mean? What does the body mean? What role does it play in this? And it's everything in this, because the light isn't going to be able to anchor, in a way that we see it manifest, right? If we are still holding on to all of these things, that are playing out in our lives that we have kind of bought into, by virtue of, just as I said, just existing here in the human form. So okay, if you are interested, if that resonates at all, either, like I said, I am doing the group session tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we do go into this space to really sit, through the body, engaging with the light, but working through and clearing through a lot of this, distraction and distortion that is just kind of sitting there and blocking the light from, flowing freely. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take good care. We'll talk soon.